The Human Capital Index 2020 publicized that Sub-Saharan Africa's average human capital index, which covers knowledge, skills, and health that people accumulated over their lives, was the lowest among all the world's regions, with a large proportion of African countries at the bottom. In many economies, a sizable fraction of today's young people may not be employed when they become adults, a frightening fact if one considers that Africa has one of the youngest populations in the world, with around 40% of the population aged 15 years and younger. Add the overlapping global challenges of the past few years, which are worsening the recovery of human development, and the inequality in Africa will increase. The Republic of Tanzania, in conjunction with the World Bank, took the decision to host the Africa Human Capital Heads of State Summit in Dar Es Salaam in July, with the idea to change the narrative on human capital and to conclude concrete commitments from the African heads of state.
President Chakwera, it is your turn. We would like to invite you to just say a few words about what we are trying to address here. The issue of ensuring that we are able to actually say, perhaps in 10, in 20 years, we've been able to adequately resource our children for them to be active participants in a changing economy in particular.
From this summit, we will learn from what I have already begun to learn and how to leverage our demographic dividend. You know, Malawi, just like Africa, has a youthful population. And our 2018 census states that 80% of our 17 million people were of the age under 35. The same report shows that Malawi's fertility has been steadily declining from 5.7 children per woman in 2010 to 4.2 children per woman in 2018. And we believe the decline as a signal that there's a demographic window of opportunity for economic growth if the youthful population is moved into a labor force. Nevertheless, there are challenges, and challenges that are impeding youth productivity, and these include low access to quality education and skills development, high adolescent fertility, drug and substance abuse, and child marriages. And so that forms a context in which the country-level milestones that are being addressed, particularly to make sure that education and skills development, science, technology, innovation, health, and nutrition are central areas to focus on. And the World Bank has been extremely helpful in making sure that some of these gains, even today, can be celebrated. We have completed reviewing the Early Child Development Curriculum, ECD, and we are in the process of reviewing education and training curriculum for primary, secondary, vocational, and tertiary education at levels to include 21st century skills that meet the demand of the labor market. So we're doing this, expanding even national technical colleges and 30 community colleges, technical colleges, and skills development centers to increase access to skills development from 11,000 to 65,000 by 2026. And we are also upgrading 400 community-based child care centers, CBCCs. From 2018 to date, the increase to equitable access has been from 46% to 49%, and we are moving toward the target of 70% by 2030. In our effort to provide employable skills, we are implementing graduate internship program, and over 14,000 graduates have benefited since 2018. And in addressing skills mismatch, we have established public-private sector skills dialogue forums. to enhance interactions between training institutions and the industry. And we have also started reviewing the national job creation strategy to incorporate areas of high value chains, such as macadamia, cassava, sugar, with enormous potential for job creation. In terms of science, technology, and innovation, we want to improve access to skills development. We've introduced TEVIT mobile vans, outreach program targeting communities in hard-to-reach areas. We also established business incubation centers like design studios, innovation hubs, garages. Finally, we have rolled out the Unified Beneficiary Register, UBR, for e-payment, so that we can consolidate, make sure that social protection and productive programs such as social cash transfers, bursaries, vulnerable students, and climate-smart enhanced public works, and affordable input program, AIP, can be consolidated to reduce targeting costs. But food security, job creation, and wealth creation, these are things that we want to focus on.
I'd like to move on now and invite His Excellency Dr. Julius Maada, President, Republic of Sierra Leone. Again, Your Excellency, the format is the same. Your initial thoughts on this summit and what we need to do as a continent to ensure that, I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the Lions on the Move? McKinsey Institute, Lions on the Move. A report that they released, I think, in 2014, if I am not mistaken, which spelled a rosy picture of Africa that was going to be growing and creating jobs for its people. And then I remember another big report, UNICEF, put together again, Generation 2030, I think, report that was called, again, spelling out this huge opportunity for us to realize as Africans. But warning, if we do not change our trajectory in terms of investment in our children, we would be going nowhere. And I'm saying to you, sir, as you address us today, we are in danger of having a disaster and not the dividend. But let me get your thoughts.
Thank you very much. My government is a human capital development government. That was how I termed it even before I started my campaign, because we realized from the in-depth studies that we did before even I embarked on my political journey that illiteracy, high illiteracy, was a serious hindrance to development in Sierra Leone. So I identified human capital development, and I've taken it through the first term of office. For me, it's not a matter of whether we are ready or not. The need is upon us. And for certain things, you don't have to be ready to embark on them. It is existential if we have to succeed in this 21st century, if we have to move from being at the receiving end of the fourth industrial revolution after having been at the receiving end of all the other revolutions, then we must pre-position Africa by making sure that we invest adequately and consistently in our most precious resource that we have, which is the human capital of Africa. We'll be wasting time to do any other thing in this 21st century, and especially with the looming fourth industrial revolution. We cannot survive, we cannot thrive if we do not position ourselves ahead of the curve. And so, what have I done? I have put aside 22% of discretionary budget of my country, and that goes for education. And I want to assure you that there is efficiency in the use of that, because it's not just the quantum, but also how it is used. We have made sure that we are paying for all, because one of the most difficult aspects is actually access to education. A lot of people are poor. You may say it's $10, but some people cannot even afford that. And so what have we done? We have made universal access to education for every child in Sierra Leone for the past 5 years. And that is still ongoing. We also have a free tuition for girls who do STEM subjects. As a result of that policy, for nearly 200 years history of our university, for the first time, women applied for engineering more than any other since the start of Fulbe College in Sierra Leone. And since I challenged the women folk of Sierra Leone, they have consistently led in all transition exams, including the latest which came out last week. 11 of the best performing students were 8 out of 11 of the best performing students were actually girls.
Today we learned that there is a difference between the number of years that you spend at school and the actual education that you had. You can have 10 years of schooling, but 6 years of effective education. And that was quite enlightening. I've always thought about it, but I've always known that rural schools perform poorly compared to urban schools. And I mean, and this is because of the effective years of education. Rural schools are short of, they have certain disadvantages. They may not have computers, they may not have libraries and laboratories, basics like electricity and water, which we take for granted in towns, but they are short in rural areas. You could talk about the teacher-student ratio, but if you don't have these facilities, it means nothing. The figures will just be deceiving you. In Eswatini, we have made very major strides in as far as investment in education is concerned. In our National Development Plan, education, that's 2023-27, education is one of the major pillars of this plan. We want to foster social and human capital development and nature skills base able to adopt innovative technology. A lot has been said about the fact that today it is technology, not just education that is matters. Eswatini was amongst the first countries to be a member of the World Bank Human Capital Project Initiative. Human capital is one of 2 high-level objectives of our plan. In our country partnership program with the World Bank, we have put a lot of emphasis on education, especially primary education. In Eswatini, since 2010, primary education is free. The only thing that is lacking is that it is not compulsory. And I think I can see now that that's a gap lacking. Because it is free, we should make it compulsory, that every child should go to school. But at the moment, it is not. So the enrollment rate at primary school is in excess of 95% because it is free. However, as you advance to the higher level, there's a tendency to drop because people have seen primary education being free. There's a tendency to think that it's probably not an expense that people must face. What we say is that when people drop out, maybe after secondary school, they tend not to have the right skills for the job. So we have training that we get from different countries that help us with this, and we teach these skills to the schools so that the children who leave school and are not yet ready for work, they can be trained. Even illiterate people, motor mechanics, electricity, and all sorts of things like that.
In the case of Somalia, although Somalia has established the right to education for all, millions of Somali children and youth lack of foundational skills in reading. Our obstacle is pervasive conflict, insecurity, and prolonged instability. Somalia has, as you know all, gone through some very challenging times in the past few decades. The ensuing instability has disturbed the functioning of schools and uprooted students and teachers. However, extremist groups such as Shabab significantly contribute to the learning effort in Somalia. Teaching has become one of the least favorite professions in Somalia. If someone, for example, has a unique capacity or competent or unique skill, they would prefer to work in the UN or an international organizations where they would be paid 10 times the salary of teachers at the very least.
Your Excellency, I wanted to follow up one more question for you, and this is around the challenge of tackling learning poverty. I think we heard the figures, they are terrible figures. We are all to blame on the African continent. I wanted to know what you are doing to tackle that learning poverty.
Firstly, we began by investing in skilled teachers. This past year, we have competitively recruited 3,000 teachers, increasing the number of teachers in the government payroll by more than 300%. Secondly, we aimed to address the challenge of access to quality education by allocating resources to build or rehabilitate schools. Third, we aimed to address socioeconomic disparity by providing school grants and ensuring that no child is left behind. The small investment we are making today will allow education to be the catalyst for lasting peace, prosperity, and unity in Somalia. To conclude, and to express Somalia's deep commitment to investing in its people, and I am pleased to announce that Somalia is joining the Human Capital Project Country Network as the 89th member.
For a very long time, our continent has been defined by others in the context of being a continent of problems, disease, poverty, conflict, ignorance. We are defining our continent ourselves afresh, that this is a continent of great potential. This is a continent of immense possibilities. Why do I say so? 60% of all renewable energy globally is in the African continent. 2/3 of the world's uncultivated arable land is in the African continent. 40% of all critical mineral resources is in the African continent. And Africa is the youngest continent with innovative, creative young people. Those 4 items define our continent at the moment. And we are discussing in this summit the most important of the 4, the young people of our continent. Human capital is the the asset that this continent has. And therefore, we must do whatever it takes to invest, to sharpen, to prepare this asset that is our young people. In the last 6 months, we launched what we call a Hustler Fund for MSMEs. We have 15 million people borrowing money from the Hustler Fund. 7 million regular customers. We have lent 32 billion Kenya shillings. That is about $30 million in the last 6 months. And now we're scaling up for phase 2 so that we can leverage on the talent, the energy, the knowledge of the young people, not just to drive our economy, but to drive enterprise and also to expand opportunity, not just for themselves, but for the bigger society in our economy. There is nothing as powerful as an educated, empowered young person with opportunity.
We come here attaching a lot of importance to the issue of human capital. One would know that all activity of humanity is targeted at the humans, and therefore developing the human himself is very important. And for us in Zambia, we attach a lot of importance to human capital. It is within our plan, our vision 2030, that we have within their human capital development. We also have it in our national plan, the 5-year national plan. We also have it in the 4 pillars that we have in the social human development. So we look at this as very important, and maybe in trying to speak to this, I would generally say we are working hard to see that the human capital, particularly of the youth, is targeted. We are not just ending at primary. We are doing a lot of skills training. Zambia has many trained people, and we have government universities, but we also have private sector universities, which are more in number than we have now. So we have those. In government, we also give bursary to the poor. It was out before. The previous government got rid of that for lack of resources. Yes. But like everybody has said here, resources should not be what determines what you do all the time. It's the priority, the importance that you attach to a situation. So we bring on board the private sector to be part of the development of the curriculum to give education that is relevant, training that is relevant to the workplace. So we have brought them on board, and we work with them.
After the heads of the African states shared their knowledge and plans to improve the human capital development through education and health, they finished their mission at the summit by making a clear and concise commitment.
To scale up our youth and promote their employability, we have to provide access to quality education that empowers youth, not only with the technical and vocational, but also a core of employability scale. Number 2, the provision of competency-based market-linked vocational skill training, hospitality, hairdressing, solar and electrical installation and plumbing, and other entrepreneurial businesses. Provide provision of career guidance, counseling and placement services for vocational skill graduates.
Our commitment as Zambia is to enhance youth empowerment schemes through providing access to affordable financing for the youth so that they do not just wait for white-collar jobs, they can also go into entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. Your Excellency.
I think I said it already, to situate the place of human capital development at the center of any meaningful human progress, and to ensure that we continue to invest in education, in health, and in also creating opportunities for our young people. That will be front and center of investments going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Madam.
Thank you. There is evidence that strong economies have a very low youth unemployment rate, but weak economies have a very high youth unemployment rate. A clear demonstration that we must invest in our youth. Therefore, I would like to pledge on behalf of my government that we shall continue investing in the human capital development of Uganda, especially of the youth, to enable them acquire relevant skills in the world of work so that they enter the job market and turn around the economy.
One final commitment that you commit to achieving?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really, the issue of deliverables is very critical. Here, my commitment, number one, political commitment. Leaders has to be committed. We are committed for this. Second, allocating the proper resource and mobilizing all actors. And this program has to be owned by the communities and creating conducive environment to development partners and other actors. Thank you.
Kwamba we are ready to invest in education. Niseme ndio, yes. We are ready to invest in education. Yeah, the last word is to the fellow African heads of state and government.
Yes.
There was a philosopher who said, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance.
Sure.
So ignorance is what has landed us here.
Yeah.
So let's now invest in education.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your Excellency. Thank you.